all the cryptids, the one that I think could be real is the Jersey Devil, because there have been thousands of reports that have been well documented. I mean, the Jersey Devil has been seen since the 1700s. And these stories and these reports were published in so many newspaper articles. And still to this day, you ask the people near the Pine Barrens, they will tell you the Jersey Devil is real. Now, this is a story from 1998. There was this woman named Deborah. And Deborah said that she was young. She had this boyfriend. They had fell into rough times. So they had a friend who owned some land next to the Pine Barrens. And they let them park their RV there and live in it. And she said from time to time, living out in the woods, you would hear weird sounds or you would see animals. But for the most part, it wasn't that bad. She said then one night she had let her dogs out. And all of a sudden she hears her dogs outside barking at something, like they had smelled the scent of something. So she goes outside of the RV and she's yelling to her dogs, come here, where are you? And she said she could see her two dogs in front of her, but she sees up in the sky this black shadowy figure just come down, take her dog, and pick it up and carry it off into the air. And at the time, she said she thought it was an owl or a large bird or something. So she's freaking out. She's screaming her dog's name. She gets the other dog, puts it in the RV. She calls for her boyfriend, and they go out in the woods and they're looking for this dog. They cannot find it anywhere. The next day, they go back out into the woods to look for this dog. They notice this one tree, there's red stuff running down it. Well, they look up in the tree, and there is the dog. And it has been ripped apart into two pieces, and it's hanging from the tree. They said this was a German Shepherd. It was, 98 pounds. So whatever it was had to be very big that carried this thing off, right? So after that, she was very cautious with leaving the dogs out at night. She didn't like to be outside at night. And she said a few nights she would, come home later at night and she was bringing some groceries in. And she would hear strange sounds like screams coming from the woods, and she would hurry up and run inside the RV. But she said the creepiest encounter with this thing was one night her and her boyfriend are asleep in the RV. And she said she had this very vivid dream. And she said standing in her bedroom there was this tall creature that had the legs of a horse, had sort of the face kind of a man, had these big long horns protruding from its head, had these sharp teeth, had red eyes. And this thing just looked at her and said, "Hello, Deborah." And she said right as it said, "Hello, Deborah," she woke up. Well, when she wakes up, she thinks oh, it was just a bad nightmare. Well, she hears what sounds like something moving on top of the RV. She wakes her boyfriend up and she's like, "There's something on top of the RV." And they could hear what sounded like footsteps, but if it was a horse kind of trotting on top of this RV. And she said all of a sudden they heard this unhumanly scream. And then, boom, whatever this was, it sort of flew off. The next day, she said she went on top of the RV with a ladder, and she looked up on the top of the RV and could see what looked like dirt impressions of hoof prints. So several months pass, and they kept having these weird encounters. And she said this night something just didn't feel right. And she said that her and her boyfriend were watching TV in the RV when all of a sudden something just hits the side of the RV. And she said it was so hard that stuff actually fell off the shelf. And she said then they started hearing these loud screams, and there was something outside of the RV, and it was kind of, flying around low, that they could see it out the window. So her boyfriend jumps in the driver's seat, starts it up, and starts driving away. And they said as they were driving, they hear a loud smashing sound on the top of the RV, like this thing was trying to get in the top of, the RV. So her boyfriend just pushed on the gas pedal and went as fast as he can. And he said after about 5 miles, whatever this was, left. And they managed to go to a friend's house. And when they get out, they could tell something was sort of like had thrashed the outside of the RV because it was badly damaged. And Debbie said she would never go back to the Pine Barrens again.